Dr. Tyler Standifird here with Jason Zuback, who's a six-time world long drive champion, discussing particularly today how the golfer utilizes the vertical ground reaction force in the golf swing. This is a part of the ground reaction force that I've heard talked about a lot, which is the vertical ground reaction force. Now there's some aspects of, as we look at how a golfer utilizes the vertical ground reaction force, that I think are really important to understand. And it's not just about how much they can produce and when they can produce it. That's a key part of it. But we also want to start to understand how that vertical force influences the motion vertically of the center of mass and a specific pattern that players tend to go through as they execute a golf swing. Jason, we've talked a lot about this pattern together. I've enjoyed these conversations. Let's talk through a little bit about what we like to see in a good player.
Right. I like to think about, there's a lot of focus on, this magnitude and the jump and the downswing, but we often forget about the preparatory phase, right? And that's what's happening before we're doing this jump. So some certain things happen to be the most efficient and to optimize things, right? Or to maximize. And what we see is characteristically the center of mass, or the collection of mass, if we average everything in the body, right? We'll see an actual, vertical movement of that, just so we can actually produce these vertical ground reaction forces. In the golf swing, we'll see a particular characteristic where in the backswing, the player will tend to lose a bit of knee flexion and even hip flexion. So, we lose a touch of posture, and then at the loading phase at the top, we'll actually get lighter, or a de-weighting phase. And this is preparation for that big explosion off the ground. And from TPI, our PGA Tour averages, they actually get to 68% of their body weight. So they get lighter in this unloading phase.
Yep. And again, as a scientist who studies motion and those associated forces, I like to put it in the context of what we can actually see in these force traces that we're actually collecting. And so when Jason talks about this idea of kind of moving up, the idea is if that center of mass is going to tick up even just slightly in that backswing, that has to be associated with a vertical force, or this yellow total force, actually going a little bit up. Because the only way we can create that center of mass displacement vertically is by creating more force going vertically. Now, when we think about the idea of what's going to happen with the offloading, that's the key where we're going to see a little bit of a dip. And Jason talked about some of those values right before we're going to see that rapid increase of vertical force. So here's a player that I think we see a lot of, a player who, because they focus so much on golf being rotationally, that they forget the idea that there is some bending and some change in that center of mass location. And so if we just focus on kind of his vertical total force, you can see that as he initiates his swing, he really stays hovered kind of around 98, 100, maybe 102, 103 a little bit. And he actually only ever offloads. The lowest point he ever gets is 98% of his total body weight in vertical force. And what that means is it's going to be really difficult for this player to create any kind of center of mass displacement going down or to the ground, because there's just too much force present there. It's almost like there's no de-weighting phase. And when you have no de-weighting or offloading phase, I've heard it called, it makes it really, really hard to get your body in those good positions, because you can't kind of have that little bit of the down in order to create that explosive up. And so what we want to see in this yellow pattern is an up, more of a down into maybe that 70-ish, 75%. I think better players maybe even a little less than that. And then the rapid push up as we kind of think of that center mass change.
Absolutely. It's just like if we think about doing a vertical jump, right? If I ask you, jump as high as you can, what are you going to need to do first?
Yeah, you're going to drop down.
You're going to drop down, and we have to. And that's the same as the golf swing. And again, it's the player that, potentially they've been taught to not ever change their levels. They remain rock solid. But in reality, we do have this, this little give and take. We get a little bit extended, and then we have this deloading or unweighting phase, and then we have that rapid explosion phase that really helps to produce, big speed, big efficiency, maximize, ultimately rotation in the golf swing and energy and potential for club head speed.
Yeah, I love it. And again, if this is the curve you're seeing on a lot of your players who aren't comfortable with that movement, right? We can walk through a really great drill progression with Jason to take you step by step how to fix that and get that vertical force and center of mass moving the right way in the golf swing.
Now, the first in our series of this idea of moving the center of mass, or The preparatory phase to our explosive vertical movement is one called vertical displacement, load to extension, surfing the line of pressure. We have our T-claw oriented so that the rear position of T-claw is in the center of the trail foot towards the heel. We have the front position of T-claw at the ball of the lead foot. This drill is going to accentuate some of the movement, particularly the unloading phase before we get to the explosive vertical phase in the swing. And it's a good one for the player to just help understand what they have to do to be explosive vertically. I like to take normal 5-iron posture. We have arms across the chest. We can use a driver, speed training club. In this case, I have super speed. And from this position, I get the player to turn to the top of their swing. From this position, I ask them to soften, just soften the knees. Now again, from here, we surf that line of pressure. So pressure goes from trail side of center of the trail foot to the ball of the lead foot. And then finish the swing. 5-iron posture, turn back, soften, surf the line of pressure, finish. In this drill, this is vertical displacement, load to extension with the force pedal, and we'll be surfing the line of pressure as we've done in other drills. So with this one, we have T-claw oriented with the trail T-claw in a position, middle of the trail foot towards the heel. I'm going to put orange force pedal over T-claw for that exact point of application where we want the pressure of trail foot. And again, I'm going to put yellow force pedal at the ball of the lead foot for that exact point of application. 5-iron posture, arms across the chest. Again, I've got my speed training club. We could use an iron, driver, any implement just to help us feel. And again, we want to turn back. And in this case, loading that trail side, soften the knees. And we want to create this pressure from that trail side of the heel to the ball of the lead foot, and then finish the swing. Trail, soften, transition, finish. Trail, soften, transition, finish. We can put it all together. Trail, soften, transition, finish. Then we can do it a little quicker. Trail, soften, transition, finish. So we can build speed for a bit more complexity, but we want that action where we have that softening phase or that unloading before we have the explosive vertical later on the downswing. The next in our series of vertical displacement impacting our vertical forces is band resisted upload. So this is going to get after the player just to get a little more extended in the backswing. And again, extended by what I mean by that is we're going to lose a little bit of knee flexion. We're going to lose a little bit of hip flexion in preparation for the deloading phase or this preparatory phase before we have that explosive phase later on the downswing. So with this one, I'll loop the resistance band under my trail foot and put the top of the band under or over top of my shoulder. In this case, it's providing resistance. The band wants to push me down. So I have to fight against the band if I want to stay upright, or even I have to stretch the band, apply force to do this. Now, in this drill, we could do this with an iron, speed training club, driver. But again, in the backswing, what I want to feel is stretching that band. Again, that band's providing resistance. We're going to have to work against it to do this upload move. 3 repetitions. Focus on stretching that band in the backswing. Unhook the band, and we want that same feel. So that's 3 repetitions with the band and 3 normal swings to feel that upload move in the backswing.
Awesome, thank you, Jason. I think that's an awesome drill progression as we think about how important it is to get golfers feeling comfortable with that. And I think that's the key, where being able to understand that it's okay to have a little bit of that change of center of mass. I think we get a little bit scared of the term loss of posture. And really what we're just talking about in here is just some of those subtle changes that we have in the center of mass. And maybe not every single player is going to need that. There's players that are going to de-weight or offload really nicely, but we see it enough that we wanted to make sure we understood what that looked like in the ground reaction force curve and the importance of that in generating speed, efficient movements.
Absolutely. It's not like these are grand motions, right?
Right.
Like they're very subtle but very impactful, right? And we need to load the legs, the knees, like have some knee flexion, so we can use that later on in the downswing and have that explosive vertical force, which pays huge dividends, right? So we do need a bit of this to prepare us for all the good things that can happen later on.
Yep, for sure. And as you work this in, either by yourself or with a coach, taking these drills that Jason has outlined and incorporating them, multiple times in repeated sets, doing them a handful of times a week, and making sure that we're really getting the feel of this practice in the right way so that we can maximize these vertical forces and these patterns that we see in the very best players in the world.